Let's talk about John. When John was 68 years old, living his life as he always had, he found a small, painless lump in his chest. For months he did what many men might do. He ignored it. He likely thought to himself, "I'm a man, it can't be breast cancer." But that assumption was wrong. When most people hear the words breast cancer, they almost exclusively picture a disease that affects women. It's a widespread belief, but it's a dangerous one. The reality is, every year, thousands of men receive this very same shocking diagnosis. And while male breast cancer is rare, making up less than 1% of all breast cancer cases, the risk is incredibly real, and it changes dramatically as a man gets older. So that brings us to the critical question: when is a man at risk for breast cancer at its absolute highest? We're going to break down what the science and the data tell us to show you the specific decade when men need to be the most vigilant. The answer might just surprise you. This conversation isn't just about numbers and statistics. For the men and families affected, it's a matter of life and death, because there is such a profound lack of awareness around male breast cancer. Men are often diagnosed at a later, more advanced stage than women. That delay in diagnosis can, unfortunately, lead to a higher mortality rate, which is why knowing when your personal risk is highest is so absolutely critical. So let's get right to the heart of it. While breast cancer can technically strike a man at any age, even in his 30s or 40s, the risk isn't static. It begins to climb significantly after the age of 50. The data is overwhelmingly clear. The most common age range for a man to be diagnosed with breast cancer is between 60 and 70 years old. In fact, the median age of diagnosis for men is right around 69 years old. What this means is that about half of all men who get breast cancer are diagnosed before age 69, and the other half are diagnosed after. For the vast majority of men, their 60s and early 70s represent the peak danger zone. So why do the 60s and 70s suddenly become this hotspot for risk? What is happening in a man's body during this time? One of the primary drivers is simply the process of aging itself. As our bodies get older, our cells have had decades to accumulate the kind of random genetic mistakes and mutations that can eventually lead to cancer. But it's also about a shifting balance of hormones. A man's body naturally produces both male hormones, called androgens, and a small amount of female hormones, called estrogens. As men age, that delicate balance can be thrown off kilter. Certain health conditions that become more common with age, like liver disease or obesity, can cause a man's estrogen levels to rise. Specifically, fat cells are active tissues that can convert androgens into estrogens. So carrying significant extra weight is a major risk factor. This higher level of estrogen can then act as fuel, encouraging the growth of breast cancer cells. Another important factor to consider is a man's past medical history. For instance, men who have undergone radiation therapy to the chest area, perhaps for cancers like lymphoma, have a demonstrably higher risk of developing breast cancer later in life. While getting older is the single biggest risk factor for male breast cancer, it's definitely not the only piece of the puzzle. To truly understand your own risk profile, it's important to know the other factors that can play a significant role. Family history is a huge one. While most men diagnosed with breast cancer don't have a family history of it, Having a close relative, whether it's a man or a woman with the disease, does increase the risk. This often points to an inherited genetic mutation, and the most well-known of these are the BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes. While both gene mutations increase risk, a mutation in the BRCA2 gene is much more strongly linked to male breast cancer. Other major risk factors include Klinefelter syndrome, a rare genetic condition where a man is born with an extra X chromosome. This leads to hormone imbalances, including higher estrogen levels, which dramatically increase breast cancer risk. Finally, heavy and consistent alcohol use is also a concern, primarily because it can damage the liver, and the liver is essential for regulating the body's hormones. Knowing your risks is one thing, but it's just as important to know the physical signs to watch out for. And here's a key point. Because men typically have less breast tissue than women, a lump can sometimes be even easier to feel. The most common sign by far is a firm, painless lump in the chest area, often located near the nipple. But there are other critical symptoms that men should never ever ignore. A nipple that begins to turn inward, a condition known as nipple inversion or retraction. Any discharge leaking from the nipple, which might be clear or even tinged with blood. A persistent rash, redness, or sore around the nipple that doesn't heal. And swelling in the chest area, or any unusual dimpling or puckering of the skin. If you notice any of these changes, the message is simple and urgent. Do not wait. Don't dismiss it. Talk to your doctor right away. Let's go back to John, the man we met at the beginning. After ignoring the lump for months, he finally went to see a doctor. He was one of the lucky ones. His cancer was caught at a stage where it was still highly treatable. But his story is a stark reminder of just how dangerous it is to dismiss the signs. The purpose of this video isn't to scare you. It's to empower you with awareness. Men, I'm speaking to you directly. If you're in your 60s and 70s, you need to be paying close attention to your bodies. Take a moment to do regular self-checks in the shower. And most importantly, never ever feel too embarrassed or too dismissive to talk to a doctor about a change in your health. Your health is too important. If you found this information helpful, please think about who in your life needs to hear it. Share this video. Send it to your dad, your brother, your husband, and your friends. A simple act of sharing could break the silence and the stigma, and you might just save a life. So what is the single most important thing to take away from all of this? While men of any age can get breast cancer, your risk is at its absolute highest in your 60s and 70s. This is the decade that demands the most awareness and self-monitoring. The good news in all of this is that the prognosis for male breast cancer is excellent when it is caught in its early stages. Know the symptoms, understand your personal risk factors, and never be afraid to speak up if something doesn't feel right. Early detection truly saves lives. Thanks so much for watching. If this video helped you, please give it a like and subscribe for more important health content. We'll see you in the next one.